So it's time to start. We're at the top of the hour, and I'm going to ask, John is already recording. Would you mute everyone for us, John?
You'll have to unmute yourself then.
That sounds good. So Jim and Sandra and I will unmute to get us started. And let's go ahead and have Gail share the screen, and we'll get us on our slide deck that accompanies our presentation here. All right. So welcome to your West Virginia FLOW, which stands for 5 Levers Organizing Workshop. And if you would, make sure you've got a piece of paper and a pen handy, or pencil, for taking notes. We are going to be very patient with each other as we muddle through Zoom. Sometimes our technology flows smoothly and sometimes it doesn't. So we will extend grace and space to each other for any obstacles or snafus. So next slide. Oh, there you go. Next slide for us. All right, perfect. So I'd like to start off by finding out what you want to get out of the workshop today. So I imagine you want to figure out how to work more cohesively in West Virginia and are looking for tools to do that. You might want to figure out how you can best match your skills and talents to specific projects within West Virginia or in your community. And I know you want to help pass the Energy Innovation Act with a carve out for coal communities as soon as possible. And if any of these resonate with you, then you are in the right Zoom call. I want to know what other things you'd like to get out of today's training. So would you go to the chat and type your ideas in there? What do you want to get out of the workshop? And the chat is located on the bottom of your Zoom screen. There is a little bubble in the bottom bar. It looks like a little cartoon voice bubble, and you click on that, it says chat, and you can answer in there. What would you like to get out of the workshop? Connect with other climate leaders, says Meg. Momentum in West Virginia, says John. Just want to find out more about CCL, Patrick says. Very flexible and open-minded. I've done advocacy before, but I'm looking for more techniques. How to continue conversation with McKinley. Doug, contemporary communication strategy. How can I best contribute? More information about CCL, how to get West Virginia to pass PPAs, says Tate. Make climate crisis a high-level media darling. Be more effective getting noticed when there are so many messages flying through space at our elected leaders. Beautiful. Those are all wonderful. You are all in the right place. Thank you so much. All right, so next slide. What a beautiful state. It happens to be where my grandmother was born, in Huntington, West Virginia. So I have a little bit of family affiliation with the beautiful state. Pictures of New River Gorge, the old mill at Babcock State Park, the West Virginia state flower, the rhododendron, those wonderful overlook rocks at Cooper's Rock State Park, and a waterfall at Blackwater Falls State Park. So West Virginia is wonderful. And yes, I want to turn it over to Jim and Sandra to tell us a little bit more about how West Virginia is making some progress. So Jim, go ahead and unmute. Jim, I can't hear you. Unmute yourself.
Yeah, did we skip a slide by any chance? It's not.
Well, let's see. Yeah, go back there. Whoops. Go back one slide. There you go. So you had something you wanted to say on this slide, Jim?
That's right. So there was the question of, what else have we seen gained by our work in West Virginia with CCL? And I just wanted, for me, I think it is the connections and friendships I've made all across the state. I've met people I would not have met or gotten to know if it wasn't for CCL. And that's been very special to me. And also, before COVID, I was regularly contributing to the local economy. I was getting a DC haircut every 6 months and getting my suit dry cleaned. So I was doing my part. Next.
Yeah, so I
have made, Go ahead, Sandra.
Okay, no, I just wanted to you know, reiterate what Jim said. I have totally enjoyed making so many new friends across the state and people who are totally committed to working on climate. People have such great ideas and great energy. So to me, that's been a really valuable part of working with CCL. So next slide.
There we go.
So we have made progress with West Virginia's congressional delegation since we've started doing this. I started going to DC in 2014. They were still denying the reality of climate change. Nobody's denying the realities of climate change anymore. We still maybe don't agree on the best course of action or the severity of the situation. But at this point, we have met face to face with all of our members of Congress, except for Alex Mooney. And we have developed especially good relationships with Senator Manchin's office. Next. We've had some successes. Senator Manchin sponsored the BEST Act, which was one of CCL's supporting asks. Next. Senator Capito and Representative McKinley sponsored the Use It Act, which CCL also supported. Next. Both of our senators at one time or another, as well as Representative McKinley, have sponsored versions of the Reclaim Act, which became a CCL primary ask because of the work we did in West Virginia in support of that legislation. This is one of our lobby teams. I forget what year exactly, I think maybe 2 years ago, but I put this slide in here because this was one of my favorite teams. We had representatives that year from Huntington, Charleston, Parkersburg, Morgantown, Martinsburg, Lincoln County, and Boone County. We had a reporter that shadowed us for the entire conference, and we had lobbyists in age from 16 to over 70. That was a great representational team. Next. We've done a pretty good job with our print media efforts and are aspiring to expand our media outreach going forward, and are hoping that will be one of the positive results from today's workshop. One of my op-eds in the Charleston paper. Next. We have a number of experienced lobbyists at this point. Everyone in this picture has been to DC multiple times. I've lost count at this point. I've participated in over 90 lobby meetings at this point. Since COVID, we've had to start meeting virtually. We still had 10 lobby meetings in 2020. And Sandra, if there's any place that you're supposed to be here, I may not have it in my notes, so just jump in, okay?
Okay, you're good.
So until COVID, we were tabling, which is a term I didn't even know was a verb until my involvement with CCL. Over the years, we have tabled at Earth Day events, the Governor's Energy Conference multiple times, the Marshall Sustainability Fair multiple times, Shepherdstown Farmers Market, Morgantown Farmers Market, the State Teachers Conference, Social Workers Conference, and E-Day at the State Capitol. And I'm sure there were others. I couldn't think of all of them. Next. And also pre-COVID, we were regularly giving presentations to Rotary clubs, garden clubs, church groups, environmental groups, college classes, women's groups, and others. We now have over 1,000 supporters across the state because of our outreach efforts. This is actually me doing a presentation at the West Virginia Law School. Next. And let's see, I don't have my notes very good here, but this is Miss West Virginia, and we have this 44-foot long banner that the Charleston chapter created at one point that depicts thousands of years of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere and what has happened since the Industrial Revolution. And so she was posing with the part that's the hockey stick at one of our outreach events. Next. This is our Charleston chapter, which was the first chapter started in West Virginia. It was started in March of 2014. Ellie came up from Virginia to help us start our first chapter. It's remained an active and vibrant chapter even during the pandemic. I kind of miss getting together, but we're still meeting virtually. And
yeah, awesome, Jim. Thank you. And nice work, West Virginia. So glad to see all of the growth. So we're going to introduce our presentation team. First, I want to introduce John Clark, who is your regional coordinator. So John, would you jump in and introduce yourself with the next slide?
Morning, everyone. Thanks, Ellie. I'm John Clark. I'm the regional coordinator for the Appalachia region. I'm actually up in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I recently retired from the post office as a letter carrier. I started the first chapter in Pennsylvania back in 2011 and been a regional coordinator since 2013.
Awesome. Thank you, John. All right, next slide. And then Jim, we've heard your voice already. Would you introduce yourself?
So I'm from Lincoln County, and like Ellie mentioned earlier, those of us in West Virginia aren't always from a city or a town. And I've been a self-employed furniture maker for going on 40 years now. My wife and I have 2 children and 4 wonderful grandchildren. And I've been a state coordinator for about 6 years now.
Awesome. Thank you, Jim. And next slide, Sandra, we've heard your voice. Would you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, hi everybody. So Sandra Fallon, I'm from Morgantown, West Virginia, originally from Pittsburgh, but in Morgantown for most of my life. And my greatest joy is my son, Liam, who I'm doing this work for, Liam and his generation and generations to come. So, and Liam is a recent college grad living in Boston, being an environmental scientist. For myself, I'm a long-term WVU employee. I worked on educational programs and assistance programs, helping small communities around the country deal with their drinking water challenges and protection. And like Jim, I started my climate work with Al Gore's Climate Reality Project back in 2011, but I wanted to get more involved in direct political work. So that's what drew me to CCL in about 2016.
Awesome. Thank you, Sandra. All right. And I'm Ellie Sparks, Director of Field Development for Citizens Climate Lobby. I joined up as a volunteer in 2010, and I started the first chapter in Virginia. That was in Richmond. I came on board as staff in 2015. I am a mother of 2 young adults and a grandmother of a 2-year-old. And it is, of course, my dedication to them that keeps me here and keeps me working on this. So in the next slide, Sandra, would you introduce our Levers leaders? Thank you.
Sure. So the names you're seeing on this screen is a list of our amazing volunteers. They've all stepped forward to help with our 5 Levers breakout sessions. And we really can't overstate how important and amazing these people are to step into this leadership role and be such a critical part of carrying out our workshop today. So some of them are seasoned volunteers, others are fresh to our efforts, and but they've all been gracious with their time and energy to help make this happen. Also not listed here are many other volunteers who helped make phone calls to invite everyone here to the session today, and we think you are all totally awesome. So Jim is going to introduce our volunteers across the top half of the screen. So go ahead, Jim.
Okay, let's see. First is Meg Kinghorn. She has made her home near Martinsburg. When she escaped from Washington 6 years ago, she works in international humanitarian development and has been with CCL for about 2 years. Meg will lead our lobbying breakout. Sarah Caballo is as a volunteer with Citizens Climate Lobby for 1.5 years and is a communications specialist with Ohio Valley Environmental Coalition. She will be helping to lead our media breakout session. And I'd also like to add that Sarah was essential in helping us put together our New Day for the Coalfields video. If any of you have seen it, she was invaluable in producing that. Doug Imbrogno. These are Doug's words. He's a defrocked former Charleston Gazette writer and current editor of the magazine WestVirginiaville.com. And it has a climate newsletter. He needs to get started back up. He'll be the other half of our media breakout. I don't think I mentioned that Sarah is the other half of the media breakout. And then there's John Christensen. He's a retired chief engineer with the U.S. Merchant Marines. He's also with Mountain View Solar, where he does government relations and business development. And John will help with our grass tops effort. And John's just also an all-around good guy. Okay, Sandra?
Yeah, okay. Oh, I think John's going to help with our grassroots. And then looking at grass tops, we have Tom Rod, who's a retired attorney. He lives in Preston County, and he is the project director of the West Virginia Center on Climate Change. And then I will also be helping in that session. In our group development session, we have Gail Bellamy. Gail is a retired professor from Florida State University College of Medicine, who with her husband chose West Virginia as their home of choice and climate change as their second issue to work on, health being their first issue. And this is where they commit their time to these two issues. And then finally, we have Jill Watkins, who, by the way, did a ton of publicity and outreach for this event. So thank you, Jill. And Jill owns Watkins Design Works. That's an interior design and green building consulting firm in Charleston. And she's been with CCL for 3 years. Next slide. Okay, so we want to find out where you all live. So we want to work on adding the name of your city to the end of your name. So has everyone done that yet so far?
Let's see.
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay, so you can do this in 2 ways. So one way is you can go to the bottom of your Zoom screen, and near that chat button, you can find that little part that says participant list. So you click on that participant list, and then that should pop up over where along the side of your screen where chat usually pops up. So you can click on your name, and you'll see 2 blue buttons to the right of your name. And you click on the one that says more and select rename from the options that pop up. And then you can go ahead and add your city to the after your name. Or there's another way to do that. You can move your mouse to the video, to your video on the screen. And again, you'll see 2 blue buttons pop up in the upper right corner of the video tile. You click on the button with the dots, another list pops up, and you can select rename from those options. So take a minute to do that. And if you can't figure that out, or if it's just not working, put your name and your city in the chat, and one of our team leaders will do the renaming for you. Okay, so everybody doing okay with that?
Yeah, it looks good. We're getting some names fixed up there. Let's go ahead and jump to the next slide. All right. So it's so good to meet all of you, and we're going to get a little more deeper into the workshop now. By the time of our very first Third Coast Conference, which was Texas, Louisiana, and Mississippi, in 2013, our Texas volunteers had been having meetings with their members of Congress for several years. They felt frustrated by the lack of progress, and it seemed to them, many of whom were engineers, like a lever was stuck. And they decided that if one lever seemed stuck, then they might pull on some other levers to get movement in Texas. So our volunteers reviewed the various activities underway, writing letters to the editor, tabling, as Jim mentioned, at community events, giving talks to clubs and faith groups, holding monthly chapter meetings. And they organized these and other activities into 5 categories they dubbed the 5 levers of political will. So using the chat, if you would, please name as many of the 5 levers as you can. You can name 1 or 2 of them or all 5 of them. What are the 5 levers of political will? See what you can guess in the chat. Pressure. Yeah, not quite. That's what a lever does, apply pressure or create movement. It's the types of pressure. So grassroots and media, Tate, nice grassroots, grass tops, group building, media, and lobbying. Wendy, ding, 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 ding. You will guess them all. All right, so today we're going to consider how these levers interface with each other and why we need teamwork to get the job done. Before we do that, we're going to review CCL's origin and the bill we support. So many of you know Marshall Saunders, our founder. His DNA runs deeply through the organization. He died just over a year ago, and since I can't introduce you to him, I will tell you a little about him. Marshall was a businessman who, like all of us, had something in particular that inspired his action on climate. Marshall had dedicated 3 decades to the effort of eradicating poverty. He had devoted his time, talent, and treasure to specific programs designed to help poor people launch small businesses. When Marshall first learned about climate change, he recognized that global warming was already threatening poor people and undermining the efforts that he, and so many others had put into helping people rise from poverty. So Marshall decided that if he was serious about solutions to poverty, he needed to become serious about solving the climate crisis as well. Next slide. So as a result, 13 years ago, Marshall started Citizens Climate Lobby with 3 groups in San Diego. Today we have 611 chapters all over the world, with 485 of those in the US, and we are covering 92% of US congressional districts. Now, in his volunteering to address poverty, Marshall joined up with a group that had developed a specific approach to organizing citizens to empower Congress to take action. Marshall took that proven methodology and applied it to climate solutions. That group's name is Results. We've expanded on that methodology with the 5 levers, and we will describe that shortly. Let's take a moment to consider what brought each of us to this workshop today, to climate change in general, and to CCL. So Jim and Sandra, would you get us started on that?
Okay, well, for me, like Sandra mentioned, I trained with Al Gore's organization in August of 2013, Climate Reality. Basically with that, you learn to give his PowerPoint presentation, which is a great presentation, but I came back to West Virginia really inspired, but I had a lot of trouble finding venues to give that presentation. And somebody turned me on to CCL. I did the introductory phone call. Ellie called me and talked me into going to a conference in Atlanta, where I got to meet all of these wonderful folks involved with CCL. And I got to learn all about the organization, and I've been involved ever since.
Yeah, and I joined CCL because I wanted to work on political solutions to climate, and I really like CCL's commitment to bipartisanship. I think bipartisan solutions have the most enduring chance for success. And I also like the emphasis on public engagement and empowering people to get engaged in the political process and help build that political will, which I think is fundamental to what's going to move us forward.
Awesome, thank you. Next slide. Back to you, Sandra. Oops, with the next slide after that. One more slide. There we go.
Okay, great. So now, like Ellie said, we want to take a minute to share what brought you all here today. So John, first we wanted to ask you to pause the recording for us. Okay.
Hello, welcome back, everybody. Welcome back. Good to see you. All right. All right, Gail, when you're ready, go ahead and get us on slide number 30 and share screen again.
Is this it, Ellie, or is it the one before?
Oh, I can't see. It's the one with the elephant and the donkey in love with each other.
Yep, I've got it. Are you ready for a big bipartisan solution?
That's exactly right. All right, so share your screen when you're ready. We're not yet seeing it. Oh, you're muted. So you have to do the screen share. I think you've got it up on you, but we don't see it yet. There we go. Oh, wrong page, but you'll get there.
Okay, that's not it.
No.
Organizers, could you help Amy on how she can unmute herself in the breakout rooms?
On the phone, you press *6. So if you're on the phone and you're in a breakout room, press *6 to unmute and *6 to mute.
And also, you've turned your recording of the main meeting back on.
You're welcome, Paul. We're gonna get it ready to turn it on as soon as we get to the slide. So maybe unshare your screen, Gail, and then try sharing it again because you're on a. There we go.
Okay, so I'm going to try again. Share screen, and
there we go. All right, Jim, over to you. And John.
Okay.
Start the recording.
There are a number of different approaches and solutions being proposed to address climate change. We see carbon fee and dividend as being the essential first step in addressing climate change. We like the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act because it works. It will reduce America's emissions by 40% within 12 years. Current greenhouse gas regulations will fall short of this accomplishment. A broad range of economists and scientists support the act because it is simple, comprehensive, and effective. In addition to protecting against climate change, the Energy Innovation Act is good for people. The policy will improve health and save lives by reducing pollution that Americans breathe. An estimated 114,000 people die prematurely every year because of pollution. Reducing carbon pollution reduces these premature deaths, helping environmental justice communities, Black people, Native Americans, Latinos, and poor white people who more frequently live closer to things like coal-burning power plants. Not only is it good for people, but it'll be good for the economy. This bill will create jobs, job growth right here on American soil, on main streets, in healthcare, and in manufacturing. Next.
Awesome. Go ahead. Yeah, the next slide there. And Jim you just did a nice job of reviewing what we like about the bill. So there we go. It's effective, it's good for people, and it's good for the economy. We're also very encouraged by the fact that this type of policy has bipartisan support across the country. So next slide. The way that the Energy Innovation Act uses, it's a carbon fee and dividend approach, and that works like a three-legged stool. First, we place a steadily rising price on carbon, assessing the fee upstream on the fossil fuel companies directly to keep administrative costs low. The fee starts at $15 per ton of CO2 and increases annually by $10 per ton, indexed to inflation. Second, the bill gives cash to people, dividing 100% of the net revenue equally among individuals. Third, the third leg of the stool levels the global playing field with a fee on goods coming from countries without a similar price on carbon, and we call that a border carbon adjustment fee. And yes, it is time for questions. So go ahead and unshare the screen, Gail, so we can see everybody, and we're going to open it up for questions. You can electronically raise your hand if you like, which pops you to the upper left corner of my screen. We can call on you. You can wave your hands so we can see you have a question. You could put a question in the chat. So does anybody have any questions you'd like us to answer now? And you can also just unmute and sing out.
Okay, so a question I have, hold on.
Oh, you're muted. You were unmuted before.
A question I have is, it sounds like a very good plan. It does not sound like a plan that's supported, at least initially, by the Biden administration at this particular point in time. So as yeah.
Yeah, so what has to happen with something like this? It has to go through Congress. It's not something that a president can do as an executive decision. So it does have to go through Congress, and we know that Biden is looking for a carbon price, market-based kind of solution. So it is, we believe he will easily and happily sign a bill into law. Oh, we've got some good questions in the chat. So Meg asks, has the new bill been introduced in this Congress? Not yet, so no bill numbers, but when a bill has been introduced in more than one Congress and it has a name, you can just still talk about that as the bill, even though it doesn't yet have a new number. So you can still call it the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act. And Jim, there's a question, where is Manchin on this? Where is Capito? And I'm gonna turn it over to Jim to speak to that. So Jim?
Well, Shelley Moore Capito actually said a week or two ago that she would consider carbon pricing and clean energy standards depending on how they were structured. So I think there's some hope there. Joe Manchin recently said that he would not support carbon pricing. But then there was a vote 2 nights ago where it was actually, the vote was on prohibiting carbon pricing, and he voted against that piece of legislation, which I found very interesting. He said he wouldn't be one of the 50 that would support, but the other night he did. So I think we have a ways to go, but I think there's hope. And things like Joe Manchin's cohort at the Energy and Natural Resources Committee, Lisa Murkowski, came out in support of carbon pricing this fall. So I think there's movement afoot. We just have to be patient. And we have to do our work. Long answer.
Perfect, perfect. So who is sponsoring the act? Actually, John, would you put a link to the Energy Innovation Act website so you can see a list of the people who sponsored the act in the 116th Congress?
I just put one in the chat. I just put that link in the chat.
Okay, good. So check that link out. That would show you who were the previous sponsors, and then we'll see who are the upcoming sponsors when that enrolls. Doug asked, what is the status of CCL moving on other issues and centering them as well as the carbon tax? So we did make the Reclaim Act one of our alternate primary asks. So our primary ask for years has been carbon fee and dividend style policy, because scientists and economists tell us it is the best first step for Congress to take in reducing the greenhouse gas emissions. So that's what we've been doing. Then we recognize that the Reclaim Act is also important. And so we made that one of our alternate primary asks. So our volunteers across the country we encourage them to ask that of their member of Congress. And then we have a handful of supporting asks. So sometimes there are things that a member of Congress would be willing to do towards solving the energy problem. And they might join up with a co-sponsor of a bill that is in alignment, bipartisan, and working in the same direction. So those are our supporting asks. And we've got a list of those with each Congress, the BEST Act, the Use It Act, the Growing Climate Solutions Act, a handful of those. And then, oh good, so more information. I'm gonna do 1 more minute for questions. Does anyone else have any questions? All right, I'll let you know. If you do have questions, then you can ask either one of your state coordinators, and Jim or Sandra. If they don't know, they will find the answers and get back to you. You can always ask John Clark, your regional coordinator. And then there are folks who've been around who've served as group leaders of the local chapters, and they can also be responsive to you. So you're welcome to ask them. And on our community website is where you can go to see if your questions have been answered there. So there's plenty of places to look for questions. And now we're going to do a little movement break. So Paul Epstein is going to lead us through a little singing and stretching. So I'm gonna ask everyone to step back and stand up and reach up, and Paul, there we go.
There's a change a-comin', it's already here. It's been growing stronger for 100 years, but it ain't a good one, and it's getting worse. It's a warming planet, hot house Earth. We know what to do. We can stop it now. Stop burning fossil fuel. Build wind and solar power. It's a green revolution. We can turn this thing around. There's a clean solution. Leave that carbon in the ground.
Woo! Thank you, Paul. That was awesome. All right. I hope you got your blood flowing there, everybody. Let's go back to sharing the screen. We're on slide 35, which is right after that movement break. And what I want to let you all know is that in the second half of the workshop, we're going to do breakout rooms. And the breakout rooms are going to line up with the 5 levers. We're going to talk about those levers now. As we go through talking about them, think about which breakout room you want to join. And I'll put those in the chat. When you figure that out for yourself, you can rename yourself and add the lever to the front of your name. So you're not changing your name to the lever, you're just adding that to the front. You added your town, your city, your county to the end of your name. You're going to add the lever to the front of your name. So I put those in the chat for you. And let's go ahead and get started on the levers. So Jim, get us started on lobbying with the next slide. Awesome.
I thought there was going to be an image here. Is that on the next one?
Yeah, it'll be
yeah. Could you advance the slide? Okay, this is one of our lobby teams meeting with Adam Tomlinson, who at the time was Shelley Moore Capito's legislative director. And so I think this is a good example of building relationships. Senator Capito is now the ranking member on the Senate Environment and Public Works Committee. And Adam has moved to the committee as a minority staffer. So, you know, our ability to work with that office and now the committee from our work leading up to this is advanced. And also Adam is from the Charleston area, so we've been able to meet with him in district on several occasions when he's been home from Congress. And I think I mentioned this earlier. So Senator Capito recently quoted as saying that she would consider supporting a carbon price. And, you know, I'd like to think that our 6-7 years of meeting with her office at this point has had some influence on her saying that. Next. And next. So media is next. This is a picture of when we started a chapter in Huntington, West Virginia, and Ellie came up and helped us do a group start. And then the next day we met with the editorial staff at the Huntington paper. And Ellie was a big help with getting us started with meeting with editorial staff. On the media team, your media strategy will address the political realities of your district or state. If you have large rural areas, you may target small rural newspapers with your letters to the editor and op-eds. A small team may meet with editorial page editors to seek endorsements of the Energy Innovation Act. Ellie helped us start the first 2 chapters, and at that time we met with the editorial boards of the papers in Huntington and Charleston. We have since met with editors in Beckley, Parkersburg, Martinsburg, and Shepherdstown. You might pitch a story to a newspaper or TV station about an interesting chapter member or local respected leader calling for action on climate, tying the human interest story back to the bill. Since I met with the Charleston paper in 2014, they've run everything I've ever submitted to them. So next. So next is present. Why is it my grassroots outreach? Next. So here I have text about presentations. Is that right, Ellie? Am I in the right place?
Talk a little bit about like tabling. I think this is Sandra's slide, actually.
Yeah, so I was going to talk a little bit about grassroots. So what do we mean by that? Basically, it means reaching out to friends, family, neighbors, community members, and getting them to engage their members of Congress and their own friends and family and neighbors. So we do this because our members of Congress understand that every phone call, every email, every letter that they receive on an issue represents many others with the same concern. So it has a real multiplying effect when we can contact our members of Congress. And congressional staffers who work with those members of Congress tell us that a steady daily drumbeat of calls and emails make a big impact on their bosses. So part of our goal this year in West Virginia is really to expand our grassroots outreach and up those contacts to Congress. So ultimately getting people, more people like us engaged, making those calls, sending those emails, and getting others to do the same. So we think this helps give a voice to people who care about climate also. So a 2019 study from the Yale program on climate change communications indicates that 2/3 of Americans, 66% of us, are at least somewhat concerned about climate. That's a lot of people. That's a big percentage. So again, our plan here in West Virginia is for grassroots volunteers that we recruit to actually call their members of Congress on a monthly basis. And this is a particular program of CCL's called the Monthly Calling Campaign. So again, we can all help make this effort successful by working through our own networks to get people engaged and really ask people you know to join this monthly calling campaign and commit to calling Congress 1 day per month. So then another of the 5 levers is grass tops. So members of Congress consistently tell us they need to hear from local respected leaders. That can include anybody from business to government, academia, public health, civic leaders, agriculture, anybody who is, you know, in a position of influence. This is who we refer to as our grass tops. And members of Congress trust these people and often turn to them for advice and guidance. And even individual voices of these local leaders have a disproportionate impact on a member of Congress. And that's why we seek their support. And what do we want these grass tops people to do? We want to encourage them to encourage our members of Congress to act on climate, and if they can, to endorse CCL's carbon pricing legislation. So if you join the Grass Tops team in our CCL West Virginia group, you'll work with other volunteers doing various things that can include reaching out to possible influencers that you may know, help open the doors to those leaders, work with us to build relationships with those leaders, and then we'll try to secure their engagement on climate and push them towards talking to their members of Congress. So I also wanted to say that CCL has a business climate leaders action team. This is something that the national group offers, and that provides a lot of resources that we can all learn from and help us put our own strategy together for engaging various grass tops leaders. Okay, next slide.
Is it back to me? I think it is.
Yep.
Okay. So presentations play an important part in grassroots outreach. We were doing quite a few presentations, well, some before the pandemic, but it's kind of slowed down some. But we'll get going again when things come back to normal. And our presentations work as a team, with some volunteers working to schedule events and with other volunteers actually going out and giving the presentations. Ideally, we also have additional volunteers who attend the events to assist with networking. I know from experience that if you have a good crowd, it's challenging to engage personally with everyone in the room. And another way just to get the word out is to build support, is just simply share with our work with family, friends, neighbors, and coworkers. Next.
Okay, so we've talked about lobbying, media, grassroots engagement, and grassroots outreach, and really holding all those levers together is our group development. This is really the glue of any CCL chapter. So next slide. And so the group development team does things like welcoming and orienting new volunteers, inviting people to join us for specific projects in some of the other levers. And if you're part of this team, you might call chapter members to check in on projects or remind people about upcoming meetings. You might pair new members up with old timers who can help show new members the ropes. And so it's not all work. We do like to have fun. So our group chapter people are the ones who organize our parties and our fun times, our social gatherings. Even if we're doing them socially distanced and on Zoom these days, we appreciate their work to help us have some fun. And then we wanted to kind of reflect on something CCL's National Director, Mark Reynolds says about working together and building these relationships. And he says, we are betting the ranch on relationships. And that includes the relationships we have with each other. So hence the importance of our own, engagement and fun and partying. Okay, so our work in CCL finds its footing in our core values also. This is important to keep these core values in mind. We think about focus, we think about optimism, we think about relationships, we think about our personal power, our integrity, our diversity, and our non-partisanship. Those are some of the values we strive to incorporate into our work. Okay, next slide.
So Jim, can I walk people through the monthly calling? May I jump in?
Yes, please, Ellie. Would you do that for us?
Awesome. So monthly calling, we're going to get everyone on the call. If you're interested, signed up to help with the monthly calling. That's where we each call once a month to our 2 senators and our House member. We give you a little reminder, a little text or an email, a link to some information about what to say on that phone call. And if you are up for doing that, enrolling in that, then you can just wave your hands for me that you're up to enroll today. We're going to put a link in the chat, and that will take you right to the website for signing up. And it's a very quick sign up. And so there it is, cclusa.org. It's in the chat. You can click on that. And, if you're on your phone, you can write it down and save it for later if you'd like. But if you click on that, skip along to the next slide after that, you'll see a page that looks like, one more slide, Gail, that has a little sign up on the right-hand side where you enter your first name and your last name and how do you want to be reminded. And then you enter your zip code and your congressional district. And all you do then is click enter. So that's how you do it. And we can help you afterwards if you get stuck. We're just gonna keep on moving along. I wanna touch base with you on the next slide. If you haven't yet picked your breakout room, you're just identifying it, then I'm gonna remind you, it's one of the 5 levers. I put that in the chat as well. Update your name to add that to the front of your name, or put it in the chat if you can't figure out how to do that. And let's move on to the next slide. So at CCL, we like to say that now is always the best time to pass climate policy. We've got a good bill, and they've had many sponsors in the last Congress. We've got bipartisan support that is growing. We have business support growing, a climate-friendly president, 500,000 new environmental voters, and rising public concern about climate change. In order to pass a bill in the new Congress that we're in right now, we need 10 to 12 Republican senators voting for the bill. So it's wonderful that Capito is thinking about that possibility. We need Democrats in both the House and the Senate working with Republicans on the bill. Wouldn't it be lovely to see both of your senators working together? And we need the Senate Majority Leader to bring the bill to the floor for a vote. Now, in light of that, your state coordinators, Jim and Sandra, have come up with some West Virginia strategic priorities. So next slide, Gail. And Jim, would you tell us about those?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was having a snack. I'm just going to read from the slide here. I mean, we really are working to strengthen our collaborations with other nonprofit organizations across the state. There's a new effort in West Virginia, the West Virginia Climate Alliance, that we're working very closely with. I'm excited about the possibilities with that. Like I mentioned earlier, we've met with all of the editorial boards of all the state newspapers. I really think that through media, we could up our game as far as getting the word out more about West Virginia's growing concern for climate change. We've been talking for quite a number of years about putting more effort into grass tops. It's one of those things that just requires a small group of people that are dedicated towards doing this, increasing our list of endorsers and involving them in just not in writing letters and making phone calls, but possibly participating in our lobby meetings. It would be great to bring some folks along. And our senators and their staff regularly tell us that they need to hear from folks of influence. So that's an area I am really excited about the possibilities. And I feel like we've done a pretty good job with lobbying. We can always do better, get more people involved in our lobbying efforts. And we do want to spend a little bit more time lobbying for our New Day for the Coalfields proposal.
Awesome. Thank you, Jim. All right. So if you'll move, Gail, move to the next slide, and the next slide after that, we're going to jump right into a little exercise. So I've got a little exercise that will help us make a bigger contribution to CCL without a lot of worry or effort. And if you're up for that, give me a little thumbs up. Little exercise. It's a writing. That's good. Thank you. It's a writing exercise. So please grab a piece of paper and a pen. Hold that up when you've got it. I'll give you a couple seconds to locate that. Good. All right. Sam, you got it. Perfect. So what we're going to do, I'm going to flash some questions. I will read the question to you. You can write down your answer, and I will share my answer. We'll move through the questions. There are about 6 of them. And let's go ahead with the first question. So the next slide for us. All right, so question 1. You already answered this earlier. What do you really care about that brought you to CCL or climate change? Like I said, for me, it's my children, and now it's my grandbaby, 2-year-old Isabel. What brought you to climate change and Citizens Climate Lobby? All right, next slide. What is one of your passions outside of CCL? For me, it's regenerative agriculture. What is one of your passions outside of CCL? All right, next slide. What is your special skill or expertise? Pat yourself on the back. We're building a team. It's nice to know who does what well so we can get ourselves into the right positions on the field. I like to write poetry. I think I do it pretty well. It's kind of like writing letters to the editor. I like presenting. What do you do well? What do you enjoy doing? Write that down. All right, and then next question. What other groups do you belong to? Civic, faith, neighborhood, education, professional. These are places where we might do a presentation, or we might ask that group or members in that group to be endorsers of the bill. And think about, where do you have membership? I'm a member of the Virginia Association of Biological Farmers. Where else do you have membership? All right, and then next question. How do you like to work? Solo, with a partner, or on a team? I like all of those. It kind of depends. I like a wide range of those. How do you like to work? It's kind of nice to know. All right, next slide. We're going to look at a checklist and pick out 3 activities that you might enjoy doing. And you can also pick out 1 or 2 that you don't like doing. So we'll click to that next slide and I'll read those out loud because I know we have some on the phone. So here's our checklist. Chatting with strangers, with familiar folks. Could be one or the other or both. Publicly speaking at a presentation, at a town hall, on a Zoom. Writing, we write to Congress, we write letters to the editor, social media posts. Is there any kind of writing you enjoy doing? And then there's kind of events-oriented activities. So planning an event, hosting an event. I think the same person can do both, but sometimes it's the planner doesn't necessarily want to be the host. So planning or hosting, designing flyers or social media. We certainly need those for activities and events. Organizing information, organizing volunteers, organizing data entry. Like, I'm not a fan of the data entry. It's good for me to pair up with someone who does that and enjoys that, because I'll make a big old mess out of a spreadsheet. Research is in the next column, online research or related topics. Research, outreach, calling. Many of us were called and invited to join this training today. And what a difference that made to get a phone call. We just love it when people are interested in calling. Emailing, of course. And then social media. Are you someone who likes to work on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram? The young people are saying TikTok these days. So what if you know social media? And then technology, people to help with Zoom. And when we're back in person, people to help with things like projectors. Teaching, skills you might have, knowledge you might have, or skills you might want to gain. I find that when I teach something that I want to learn, I learn it better. So maybe you want to learn how to write letters to the editor. You could learn how to and then teach others. And then networking within your chapter, within the state, or externally. All right, so those are, that's a checklist. So next slide, please. Let's think about expanding your work in CCL, your contribution, and reflecting on your answers of your personal inventory, and also learning about the 5 levers as we did. What is one way that you could expand your contribution to CCL that would delight you and move us forward? So in the chat, and if you're on the phone, feel free to unmute with a *6 and complete this sentence. My answer is I might get letters to the editor in those rural newspapers in my very big rural district in Virginia. So I might crunch data, says Joe. And phone callers, please feel free to press *6 to unmute and share what you're thinking at the moment. I'll read what's in the chat. So what I might, go ahead and type that in the chat. I might. Oh, here comes some. Jill says, I might plan an event. John says, I might hold more presentations. Tate says, I might do some research. Good. Anybody else want to add, or anybody on the phone want to unmute and contribute? Oh, here comes more. Doug says, I might help design flyers and brainstorm videos. I might write kids' books on the climate, says Wendy. I might connect with other bird watchers around the climate crisis. Oh, I love that. I might do more, starting with monthly phone calls. Awesome, Paul. I might assist with media outreach, technology, and research. Nice. John says, try to plan more meetings with local congressional staff. Awesome. Scott says, I might organize data and research. These are beautiful. Steve, I might research innovative cars. That would be fun to do. Anybody else? Last call for our phone callers. Does anybody want to unmute themselves? All right. Very good. Oh, here comes, I might write letters. Perfect. All righty. Beautiful. So this is I've got this little exercise that we just did in a mini slide deck. So if you are someone who's helping at all in West Virginia with new volunteers, you might want to use this little exercise. And I put that link in the chat for you. Okay, good, more research. All right, next slide for us. All right, so we've reviewed the levers. We've looked at our state and national strategy for passing the bill. We've inventoried ourselves and identified possible ways to dig deeper. Next, we're gonna go into the brainstorming rooms, organized by lever, and we're going to together identify some projects and initiatives that we might want to run at the West Virginia level, or maybe even at the district level. So John, if you would pause the recording, and then you will see that we've got an agenda. You have leaders for your breakout. Good to see you. Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness. I can't wait to hear the reports. Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for doing that work, that brainstorming work. I am looking forward to hearing what the reports are. And what I'd like to do is share my screen and take notes as each of the rooms share what you all covered in your rooms and what you decided. So let's run through the breakout rooms and we'll go in this order. Let me make my screen a little bit bigger so you can see what we're gonna do. And let's start, oops, John, so if you want to hit the record button if you haven't yet. And thank you, John, for managing those breakout rooms. Megan in lobbying. Meg, what's the report from lobbying? Unmute, if you will, and tell us what were maybe 1, 2, or 3 of the top ideas that came out of the lobbying brainstorming. Are you there, Meg? Let's see, I don't see her. Is she back?
Yep, good. Okay. Good. Thanks. It got hidden behind my other stuff. Okay, so we had an awesome, how long do I have? Is this really quick or?
You have about 2 minutes.
Okay, yeah. Great. We had a great conversation. We had actually, I think everybody in our group was connected to coal miners. They came from coal mining families or communities, which was awesome because we could really tap into that. And so the message that came out really strongly was to really talk about our pride in our heritage, our community heritage, our family heritage, and use that as an asset. And to really turn that around to say, we are hard, we are scrappy, we have worked hard before, and we can work hard again, right? We do this because of our families and our heritage. Just give us an opportunity. So we really talked about messaging more than like activities. The second message we came up with is care for the coal miners. New Day for the Coal Fields is a very strong piece about caring for the coal miners. And then the third one was economic impact, economic development. That coal mining is actually a relatively minor, I don't know how low on the list, but there are other opportunities growing in tourism, healthcare, and those are where and energy. So there's what the opportunities are, and we need to re-envision our economy, and we're given an opportunity to do so through New Day for the Coal Field. And Joe, we had one person, Joe said that she would really be happy to work on turning this into an elevator plug. So yeah.
For those of you, this is Joe. For those of you that aren't familiar with elevator plugs, you know, you have if you have time is extremely limited, and if you have that moment with your legislator, get your point across. And so you create what's called an elevator talk. That's a 1-minute elevator talk that gives you that moment to drive home an idea.
Awesome. You guys are making me cry. I love this vision. All right, thank you, lobbying. Wonderful work. Media, what's the report from media?
So what came out of a very fruitful discussion, I think, was advocating for a comprehensive media strategy that leverages traditional media, digital media, as well as providing opportunities for mentorship to democratize storytelling platforms. So to give people avenues to tell their personal stories in their local communities. We had a lot of similar themes come up in our discussion. So we also talked about changing the narrative and emphasized themes of connectivity between past, present, and future generations. And I think unity was another theme that came up pretty strongly in our discussion. And we did have some folks who I don't want to necessarily put on the spot, but volunteered to help plug in to write letters to the editor and to use their skills. Doug, do you want to add anything to that?
Just that I think that we're at a real crux point right now, especially with the promise of the Biden-Harris administration to figure out how to speak about climate, the climate crisis in a story way that that gathers in more and more people and makes it personal. What does the climate crisis mean to your family, to your health, to your community's health, to your state and region's health, so that we're no longer dealing with abstract, the planet is on fire, this is an issue having to do with polar bears. I think that flipping the narrative around so that you make this global crisis a community issue and a family matter, and very, very personal. That you know, do we want our grandkids to live in a Mad Max world? But even more so, how you engage younger people, under 30 people who are under 30, in the ways that they communicate, the social media that they use, so that we're not telling. I really think that we need to do a lot of listening to figure out how they communicate and how they, many of whom are very savvy about the climate, but how they want to talk about it and how they can best use their own native digital, the digital world in which they've grown up, how they can use their own understanding of that world to communicate this very personal issue about their lives moving forward.
Awesome. Thank you, Doug. Thank you, Sarah. Great work, media. Beautiful. All right. Grassroots. John.
Well, we had a very talented group, Ellie, and very proud of our progress here. We've identified the three main emphasis here is one is green jobs, transition, trade jobs, electrician. We used Pittsburgh as an example of how they transitioned from the a dirty steel town, to the San Francisco of the East. So that there's something we can point to that shows that it can be done. The number two thing was the broadband and PPAs. Unfortunately, West Virginia is very lax in broadband throughout the state. There's a lot of holes in broadband in West Virginia, unfortunately, and that needs to be built out so that everybody can participate. And also in West Virginia, we have not legalized power purchase agreements. So that leaves out a large portion of the population that's unable to participate in renewable energy. So that was very high on our goal. Number three was we conglomerated several talking points that begins with communication, talking to our neighbors, continuing the musical awareness with, we had two musicians in our group. So I thought it was a great idea and how to entertain the masses with our message through music, and also impact on people, not not just facts. How this affects the health of our population, the elderly, and species invasion and things like that that are endemic with climate crisis. And is there anybody else who wants to add to that from our group? Nope, I guess that's it.
No, I'd like to say something about the broadband and PPAs. The main goal of that point is to make the West Virginia a more eligible place for large industries, technology and clean industries to come in and start businesses here. It would be to increase jobs.
Thank you.
Awesome. So there's other things that need to be done in order to make this successful thinking. Love it. Nice work, grassroots. All right. Thank you all. Grass tops.
Yeah, I have to say we had a great discussion. There were 3 of us, Tom Rod and Jean Ambrose joined us. Jean's from Mid-Ohio Valley Climate Action in Parkersburg. Very seasoned, you know, experienced experts on political advocacy, education, legal stuff, community organizing. So great discussion. And Tom's going to walk through what we talked about.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Real quickly, I'm going to try to shoehorn this into 3 points as we were instructed to do. We started out talking about and really continued to talk about some Republican members of the City Council and County Commission in Jean's community, and using them as kind of a focus. What's good to do with these folks? And in terms of grass tops, these are obviously people who are respected in their communities. They've been successful. Senator Manchin's office is going to answer their phone calls and know who they are. And so how do you talk to these people in a way that advances our goals? And the first thing that we agreed upon was that the idea of the listening project model is really the best way to start. Don't come in telling people what they ought to think. Find out what they do think and what their concerns are. And that should be the model for almost all grass top contexts, and at least until you know people pretty well. And build on what they have. The idea that could be improved if it's done with other local groups as well. In other words, get everybody on the same script. Climate concerned people, not just people for fee and dividend, but whatever their reasons for being climate concerned, if they engage together and have a common script and do a listening project approach to local grass tops leaders, that can lead to hopefully good results. The second thing is what to talk to them about. 2 things that occurred to us were, one is stuff that speaks to their particular needs about managing the energy transition. And over in Parkersburg, again, where Jean was talking about natural gas and the plastics industry have really suffered tremendous hits recently, and their economy is rolling from that, and local leaders are going to want to talk about legislation for planning for transitions. Evan Hansen's legislation for planning for a just transition, and similar kinds of legislation for planning for jobs and renewables to replace the fossil fuel jobs, that try to find things that Republicans and Democrats can unite behind. And that's what Evan's trying to do. I guess the third thing is that the CCL message is one that we can generate huge amounts of money and at the same time promote clean energy with a fee on carbon. The question is what we do with that money. The New Day for the Coal Fields is a step towards saying, let's take some of that money and ease the burden on these communities that are going through this transition. What Jean's point was that it's not just, and all of us said, it's not just a transition away from coal, it's a transition away from all sorts of fossil fuels, and in a way, it's a transition of the American economy that's taking place. Infrastructure is, a monster thing, completely aside from the issue of climate change. And what the Biden administration seems to be doing is melding together these ideas of a just transition for a transition to a more modern economy with broadband, this sort of stuff. How do we bring everybody along and leave nobody behind as America goes through these changes, as opposed to leaving lives and communities somewhat shattered? So there's a kind of a unity coming together on the transition issue, an energy transition, a public health transition, and that seems to be a pretty good strategy because it gets more people on board in support of change. So in terms of doing grass top stuff, that increases the audience of people who are looking to manage these changes in their communities.
Awesome. Great. All right, let's move along because I want to get to group development, and then we've got a few little things to do in wrapping up. So wonderful report from Grass Tops. Thank you, Tom and Sandra. Group development, Gail or Jill?
Hi, it's Jill. We just had 3 people in our group too, and had good discussion, and some of what we came up with touches some of the other groups. So this is how we are going to be able to work together, I think. And Wendy was in our group, and she was just elected to Parkersburg City Council. And so our idea was, in a way to outreach and get CCL on the map would be to speak at city council meetings. And so Wendy is going to look at city council schedules around the state to see if they have sort of areas where the public can participate in the meeting, even if it's just sort of an introductory type of presentation. We also talked about having letter writing parties, even if it's virtual. So thinking of I mean, it could be letters to the editor, but we're thinking more letter writing to our delegation. So if people aren't interested in doing the monthly calling, maybe they'd want to join a house party type of situation. I'm going to look and see if CCO has pre-printed postcards. That would be a really easy way to for people to write something really quick and maybe less pressure than writing a full letter to the editor or an op-ed. And then we also came up with the idea of, maybe we could design our own postcards, or we could have a group of high school art students design postcards. And so then we thought, well, I personally don't have a way of really reaching high school students. So maybe then we reach out to our media lover people to see if they want to design a CCL West Virginia postcard for us. And so that was another option for the letter writing party. And then we also talked about doing sort of hands-on projects. So river cleanups, neighborhood cleanups, getting out and actually doing something maybe around Earth Day. And so Gail is going to look into what kind of projects we might be able to participate in and make the connection between, say, pollution and the health of the climate and that kind of thing. And then the last thing, I had sort of an aha moment myself on how to reach new members. So I'm going to create a specific email signature so that when I get an announcement that a new member has joined, I can very quickly just send sort of a form letter to that person, welcoming them and telling them when the next meeting is.
Awesome. Nice work, group development. Beautiful. All right, let me stop sharing my screen here. And all right, so we're going to, I'm gonna not go back to the slides right now, Gail, so I'll let you know. I'm gonna run through a couple of things. First, I wonder if Sandra and Jim, do you wanna say anything about follow-up for folks? What you're thinking as far as what West Virginia will be doing as far as follow-up goes, because people have some good ideas. What do you want to say about that, Jim or Sandra?
Well, I just want to say that everybody may not be aware that at the moment we're functioning as a statewide organization. We meet via Zoom the second Saturday every month at noon. I am blown away by this today. And we don't want to let this end today. So we will follow up with all the people that participated in the breakout groups. We really hope that we can organize permanent, ongoing efforts around each one of these 5 levers. I see this as a tremendous opportunity to get some things going that we've kind of struggled with in the past. So think about going forward with these ideas. I really don't want to see it stop today. Let's get these groups going, these committees going, start meeting on a regular basis, and continue this work that we started today.
Awesome. Do you want to add anything, Sandra?
Oh, just what he said. And I'm just so thrilled everyone participated today. I love the energy, love the ideas, and really looking forward to working with you all. So thanks.
Awesome. And I would like to ask all of you if you would go to the chat and share your thoughts about the workshop, anything that touched you or excited you. Will we have a final report sent to us? Asked Jean. So yeah, we'll pull something together and we will do a follow-up email, and we can include in that follow-up email a report. I love the energy, says John. So anything you want to share, like what did you enjoy about our 2 hours together or the breakout rooms? Great connection, says Joe. You can put that in the chat. Jean, very useful to me this morning. I feel energized, says Eleanor. Wonderful. And I've asked John if he would take a picture. If we were in person, we'd all shuffle over to the stairs over there and stand on the stairs and get our picture taken. So if you don't want to be in the picture, you can stop your video, but otherwise there's so many of us that he's gonna have to take 2 pictures. And so if you can, just wave and smile and he'll tell us when he's done. So wave and smile.
We got the first screen. Lots of beautiful people. Thank you. We're good.
All right, awesome. And then John wanted to wrap it up for us. And this would be, if you would share that slide number 73, Gail, that would be great, with the Chuck Yeager slide. And we'll let John give us our parting words. And the Levers team is gonna stick around afterwards. The folks who led the breakout rooms, we're gonna stick around and make sure we've got ourselves organized for the follow-up. But we'll let the rest of you go after John gives us a farewell message. So go ahead, John.
Thanks, Ellie. So I'd like to end today's workshop with a quote that can easily describe today's circumstances we find ourselves in. Just before you break through the sound barrier, the cockpit shakes the most. This came from Chuck Yeager, who was a military test pilot, who became the first test pilot to break the sound barrier on the morning of October 14th, 1947. He was the first to fly faster than the speed of sound and survive. And he was born in Mira, West Virginia on February 13th, 1923. I think his quote is the perfect metaphor for what we've been working on for over a decade now. Passing fee and dividend legislation that will dramatically reduce the greenhouse gases causing the climate crisis has been our sound barrier. In 2007, Marshall Saunders jumped into the cockpit of this endeavor and started taxiing down the runway in his first group start. We've seen it gaining altitude with similar group starts, one by one, all over the country. Volunteers joined Marshall one at a time, adding throttle and pulling back on the yoke. Volunteers making things happen by doing the things we've talked about today. In 2016, volunteers aided in the starting of the Bipartisan Climate Solutions Caucus. In 2018, we were behind introducing the first bipartisan carbon tax bill introduced in the US House. In 2019, we helped to reintroduce the bill in the next Congress, and since then worked to make the Energy Innovation Act the most co-sponsored carbon tax in Congress. Momentum is building. I can tell you in my 10 years with CCL, the cockpit has never shaken so much. When I hear of a bipartisan pair of West Virginia senators talking about the need for climate solutions, I tell you we're on the verge of breaking the sound barrier. So I urge all of you to go out and continue to help these senators become unlikely climate champions and co-sponsors of our fee and dividend legislation. Let's make this happen together. I'd also like to thank Ellie Sparks and our fantastic state coordinators, Jim Probst and Sandra Fallon, for presenting, and all of the members of our Lever team for your work. Thank you so much. And most of all, thank all of you for spending a couple of hours on your Saturday with us. Thank you all so much. enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Beautiful. All right, Jean, you can unshare, and we'll, Gail, unshare, and we'll let everybody see each other. And we can wave bye-bye. You can unmute and say goodbye if you'd like. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Good event.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Bye now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
A lot of fun.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you all. Oh. Joe's gonna go play tennis. Yay.
That's awesome. Oh.